Hello everyone. In this video, I just want to go over a few notes pertaining to appropriate citation techniques and common errors that I've seen in some of the work that's been submitted up until this point in the course. We're going to talk about how to cite Shakespeare for your final essay, and also some of the issues that I've identified in body paragraph assignments that seem to be fairly common. First of all, a note on citations. When you are citing a play or a novel, the title of the work is in italics. So a play or novel title in italics would be Othello as such. When you have a short story or an essay, the title is in quotation marks and not italics. The in-text citation format for a play is somewhat different than the one that would appear in a novel or a short story. It's somewhat similar to a poem, but there are still some key differences. The in-text citation format follows the structure, the last name of the author, no comma, no P, nothing, and then the act number, the scene number, and the line numbers. In an MLA citation, you never have a comma unless there are multiple citations in the list. So you don't have a comma between the author's last name and the page number. You don't have a P dot and then the page number. You never have those things. So an appropriate citation format for Othello, if I was citing lines 35 to line 37 of Act 1, Scene 2, would be Shakespeare, Act 1, Scene 2, lines 35 to 75. Now, depending on the edition of the play that you are reading from, you may have either Roman numerals listing the acts and scenes, or you may have our number system. Use whichever one is appropriate to the edition of the text that you are reading from. So if your edition has Roman numerals, use those. If your edition has our standard numbers, use those. When you have a line break inside a quotation, you need to indicate that line break using a forward slash, just as you would with poetry. On the slides that I've posted in Omnivox, whenever I go over a passage of the text, you'll see both this appropriate citation format and the divisions between lines indicated by a forward slash. So keep those things in mind when you're thinking about the citation of works and in-text citations. Next, I'd like to go over that sheet that I handed out on common errors, because many of those issues arose in the paragraphs that I saw in response to the last question. If you haven't done so already, I highly recommend that you review my comments on turnitin.com. Those are available for you. I would be happy to discuss them either by way of a MEO or through a Zoom meeting. If you'd like to arrange one, you can merely contact me and we can set up that conference. When it comes to common errors that I saw, I would encourage you also to review this post-test review document that has been posted on Omnivox for quite some time. But in brief, many of you have addressed the issue of quotations not being integrated. Nonetheless, there could still be improvement in those areas by rendering those integrations a little bit more smooth and clear. So you can see some examples of quotation integration, proper and improper versions of that in this document. The use of this continues to be a problem. Oftentimes, I see in the quotations that you cite appropriate analysis or logical insight, but analysis or insight observations that are not grounded in the quotation itself. You never want to repeat the literal meaning of the quotation, but you do want to base your argument on something specific inside the quotation. You never want to say, well, this demonstrates that, or this quotation shows that, because I'm left wondering, or the reader is left wondering, what is it about this that makes clear your point? So if you were specific and said, well, Iago's attempt at manipulating Desdemona into believing that he is her friend, that's specific rather than just saying this. Can you ground your analysis not in broad brush strokes of this is what's happening in the plot, but in specific analysis of the precise things that are going on inside the quotation that you have referenced? Use that quotation. Analyze that quotation. It's the groundwork for your argument. It's not there to just summarize the story or to make a general overall point that you can then use to move into another topic. No, it is the basis of your argument. You're delving into something very precise in that quotation, something that you have seen that you can use as a basis for your argument. Think about the logic of your explanations as well. How is your explanation building from the quotation? Is it grounded in the quotation? And does it build progressively step by step? In this case, precision has to be demonstrated not just in the elements from which you are drawing from the quotation, but also in the language that you use to articulate the point that you're making. Are you referencing what is inside the quotation precisely? Are you analyzing it precisely, building point by point, building step by step? Also, something I mentioned in relation to the citation of Othello, make sure that you are citing the play or the poem or the short story correctly. In MLA format, you don't have a comma. The only time that you would have a comma, for instance, when I'm citing Poe, page 2, would be if I had two quotations in the same sentence and I was citing both of them. So Poe 2, comma 3 would be telling my reader that I have cited something in this line from page 2 of Poe and page 3 of Poe. But other than that, I would only have the author's last name and then the page number or the line numbers. Or in the case of Shakespeare, the author's last name, the act number, the scene number, and the line numbers. So act 1, scene 2, lines 22 to 24. If I'm just citing one line or a word from a single line, it would be just the line itself, line 22. Also, minor things, but they build up. The use of the past tense. When we're describing what's happening in the story, we're talking about it as if it's happening now. Even if it's something that happens in our past, like in Shakespeare's era or the Elizabethan era, or even before the Elizabethan era in 1550, when Othello is set, you still reference it as if it's happening now. Use of contractions. You can't use can't. Right? Use does not instead of doesn't, or cannot instead of can't. Also, make sure that you're not using things like the reader or the first person or the second person, I or you. We can never say I, we, you, us in the context of a formal academic essay, at least at this level. All right. So keep in mind these comments on common errors and on appropriate citation format as you move on in your analysis of Othello and prepare to compose your final essay. I invite you to speak to me. I invite you to set up meetings with me so that we can discuss your ideas. I would be happy to assist you in whatever way possible as we finish off the semester.